Hello, my name is Tahreer Jaber. I'm the Executive Director of the Union of Palestinian Women Committees. First of all, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to share with you the hard experience of our organization after 1 year of designation. As you said, I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from Palestine while I have to be today in your room. That's because the Israeli occupation authorities have issued me a travel ban following the arbitrary designation of the Union of Palestinian Women Committees and another 5 leading Palestinian civil society organizations. On 15th of October 2022, the Israeli occupation authorities banned me from traveling after holding me for hours on Alembi or Al-Karama bridge crossing, which is the only crossing from the West Bank to Jordan open to Palestinians. I was banned. I was planning to go to Sweden on advocacy trip and to attend work meetings, but unfortunately, the Israeli border police notified me only then that they have issued me a travel ban without giving me any justification or clarifying a legal process or submitting me any document. My organization is a grassroots women organization established in 1980 by a group of women, all was volunteers. The goal of the organization is to empower women and organize them to defend their rights. We in the union consider ourselves part of the Palestinian national movement that struggle for dignity and against the oppression of people with focus on women. In our work in the union, we provide key services for Palestinian women, such as psychological and legal support. We have economic empowerment program due to the high level of poverty in Palestine and the high rate of unemployment against women. Also, we have raising awareness program, and we have another program which we feel that it's very important, which is enhancing the political participation for women. In addition to giving a priority to the Palestinian children by providing early childhood education. Always, we give a priority to the poorest women, the most marginalized, such as the women who are living in refugees camps. Our services to Palestinian women include psychosocial support, especially for gender-based violence victims and survivors who are living in what they classified according to Oslo Accord, the C areas, because of the lack or sometimes the not absence of any kind of such services for women in these areas. In the union, we don't only aim at enhancing the lives of the Palestinian women living under occupation and under aggression, but we also keen to create women agents of change who can demand their own rights and play a role in a progressive, free, and democratic society. Over our 40 years of existence, we have advanced our goals to enhance women's rights and the steadfastness of the Palestinian people in their lands in face of the ethnic cleansing policy by the Israeli colonial occupation. The threat that imposed by the designation of our organization as a terrorist organization and the military invasion of our organization doesn't only pose a threat on the organization itself. We believe it's a threat to the Palestinian women at all, including the GBV survivors, feminists, and the human rights defenders. Such an action is a step back to our work in enhancing the political participation for women. And we start note this clearly in our work, especially with women movement and in the field. The Israeli occupation the last 2 years arrested and threatened leaders and key women human rights defenders and activists, whom their absence from the field, from the society, and from sometimes the leadership of the feminist movement created a gap in supporting and highlighting marginalized women issues to governmental and decision-making levels. This action of Israeli forces of posing intimidation and fear of any political and civic participation of women leads to complex fear for women due to living in a patriarchal society. It's a pressure imposed by parents and husbands on active women, especially the young women and active women in such organization and in the social movement in Palestine in general. For example, a number of our employees and volunteers are going through pressure from their families to stop volunteering and working in the Union of Palestinian Women Committees. Sometimes we feel that we couldn't blame the community because it's really a real risk that the women face in Palestine by the Israeli occupation due to the lack of protection for women in general. We also believe that this designation, if no real action will put against and to fight it, will be a threat to all humanitarian work and the human rights work in Palestine, giving Israel the green light to further its discrimination policies. If you look at the broader look, Israel is tightening all life circumstances of the Palestinians. For example, the escalation of building the settlements in the West Bank, including Jerusalem, is a violation of the principles of the international law. All charters and resolutions, especially the UN Security Council and the UN General Assembly resolution. The settlers in Palestine who are living in settlements in the West Bank, most of them are armed. They pose a daily threat to the lives of citizens, including women and the children, because they are, for example, in Hebron city, they are living very close to the Palestinian homes, and sometimes they threaten the boys and the girls who are playing in the neighborhood. Also, the presence of those settlements constitutes an obstacle to accessing to natural resources. And nowadays, in the harvesting season olives, they prevented the people from going to their lands. Many girls in the neighborhood that there is settlements deprived from their right to school education because of the parents' fear of their daughters from the settlers' violations while they are in their ways to school. Those settlements are the main reason for the poverty in Palestine, especially among rural families, and therefore increase social problems, which the victims of it is primarily women and the children. It's also necessary to mention that the implementation of the policy of field execution for Palestinian youth, sometimes in front of their eyes of their parents, mothers, and fathers, and before the eyes of the cameras in the case of Shireen Abu Akleh. This is a very small example of the suffering of the Palestinian people who lacks of any kind of protection. Going back to the designation, every designated organization from the 6 or 7 organizations looked into whether to continue working in the offices or not. In our case, it was somehow different. Since firstly, the military raid to our organization in the 18th of August destroyed everything in the office. The Israeli soldiers confiscated 80% of our files, lefting the rest on the ground. They are damaged and destroyed, and etc. They confiscated all the equipment, even the old and damaged equipment. And also they confiscated materials that we use to make embroidery and handmade accessories in our income generating projects for women. They basically didn't leave anything for us to go back to. And we still don't have any idea if the office has been bugged by spyware surveillance during the raid. Second, and we feel that it's a very important point, that we work with most vulnerable society members who are the women, and especially the GBV women and the poor women. And we feel it's a very huge responsibility for us to put any of our beneficiaries or members at risk of being exposed to arrest, especially since most of them are mothers. Therefore, we decided not to go back to our office at the moment, and rather keep working from a safer environment to protect our staff, our volunteers, and our beneficiaries. Notably, the long-term arbitrary arrest of Khitan Saafin, the Palestinian human rights defender, and the former chairperson for the Union of Palestinian Women Committees, highlights the Israeli occupation authorities' effort to detain her in an attempt to oblige testimony and to a plea bargain to more broadly criminalize Palestinian civil society organizations. This is especially evident by her previous administrative detention based on secret material or secret file, what they call, and later inflated charges brought against her. Khitan Saafin was first arrested for 8 months under administrative detention without a charge or trial, and prior to the beginning of her first period of administrative detention, the Israeli military prosecutor submitted an indictment against her under a long set of inflated charges. Finally, the threat of retaliation is real and puts at risk not just organizations themselves, but also the entire Palestinian civil society and the tens of thousands of Palestinians they serve every day. The closure of the organizations follows a failure of the international community to take meaningful, concrete action to hold Israel accountable for the designation of the organization as a grave violation to the international law, including persecution and apartheid. We and all the 6 designated organizations once again call on the international community to urgently intervene against Israelis' actions, where collectively to demand the revoke of the designation that violates Palestinian freedom of opinion, expression, and association, and free from the arbitrary and detention. And we demand the end of the Israeli apartheid regime and the military occupation for our land. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tahreer, for your detailed testimony. We have some questions for you, if you can answer. I'll pass the floor to Chris. You want to start?
Thank you very much, Ms. Jaber, for your introductory comments, which were very helpful in enabling us to understand the work of the women's committees and the work that individual staff members have done. You referred to the arrest and detention of Hitham Safin. As I understand it, she was held for approximately 16 or 17 months, maybe a little bit longer. Is that correct? Was she ever provided with information about the basis of her arrest? And then was she ever provided with information about the reasons for her release?
Yes. First of all, Hitham arrested for 19 months. Before the designation, actually, it was in the 2nd of November 2021. 2020. First, she was arrested for 6 months under administrative detention. Then they decreased the period to 4 months. And after that, they renew it again. So she spent 8 months under administrative detention, renewed twice. As you know, the administrative detention is without any trial or any charges. After that, they give her an indictment with some charges. She goes in a plea bargain and a process, and after that, they fix on her 3 charges. One of them is participating in a funeral for a political leader in Palestine, which is the usual action in Palestine because we are a very small community. We have good relations with each other. So we go mostly to all of the funeral of the leaders of the Palestinian community, even if they are from any political party. We doesn't care. We go to all wedding, for example, parties. So this is the nature of the Palestinian community. So this is one of the charges for Hitham. Another one, she is the director of the UPWC, but as I said, she arrested before the designation and before declaring our organization is the unlawful organization. The third one, they say that she is a member in a political party, and she spent the rest of her period in prison, and she released on, I think, May 2022.
She was released May 2022, but I understand that her conviction, or at least the plea bargain, took effect from February 2022 when she was to be imprisoned for 16 months.
Yes.
What was the basis for releasing her after only 3 months?
She finished. This is according to the court decision.
So was the 16 months backdated to include the period of detention, or was it reduced for her imprisonment?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah. Did the 16 months include the period during which she was detained under the administrative detention order? It did.
Yes.
So the administrative detention was effectively converted into imprisonment retrospectively?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You said that this sentence was imposed on the basis of a plea bargain. Did the plea bargain involve acknowledgement of guilt and the commission of the crimes?
The plea bargain is, as I said, they put her in the prosecutor like indictment. There is inflated charges against her. But what finally they decided to give her the judge is regarding 3 main charges. As I said, one of them is the director of UPWC. The second one is participating in a funeral of a political leader. And the last one is a PLP affiliated.
And so she admitted to those 3 charges?
Yes.
Including the affiliation with the PFLP?
Yes.
Right. Is there any connection between your organisation and the PFLP or any other political group in Palestine?
Never, no. As UPWC, we are a grassroots organization. Our membership is open to all women. We don't. When we hire an employee, for example, we go on a transparent process. We accept the membership of the woman in general, regardless of her political affiliation. And to be honest, most of our affiliated members are not our members not affiliated to any political parties, because, as I said, we give priority to poor women, most marginalized refugees, and etc. But as you know, Palestinian, we are under occupation since more than 70 years. And the political parties have existence, they have members, and it's guaranteed by the international law that anyone is free to affiliate to any political party. So it's a right.
Sorry. Are there any others of the board members or senior staff who have been charged for membership of the PFLP?
No.
So Ms. Safin is the only one, a unique situation?
Yeah.
Okay. In making the designation of terrorist organisations, the Israeli authorities have alleged that there were financial payments made to the PFLP by your organisation. Has your organisation ever made financial payments to the PFLP?
I think the Israeli allegation is not true, because they submitted this file and what they say evidence to the UN, for example, and to the United States and to the donors and to the international community. And the reaction of those international community, it was clear that they didn't find any evidence of any of the 6 organizations transferring money to PFLP. I'm working in the Union of Palestinian Women Committees since 12 years. We have our yearly audit that we submitted to the Palestinian Ministry of Interior, which done by external firm. Selected in also a transparent way, and we make also individual audit reports to some based on the donors' request. So I think we don't have any financial problem appears on our documents, and my knowledge we don't have any relation, or we didn't make any transfer to any political party, not only the PFLP.
And these external audits that you refer to, were they conducted by major independent audit firms?
Yes.
And have any of them ever disclosed any concern by the auditors in relation to any expenditure by the union?
No.
Thank you. I'd like to turn to your travel ban that you referred to, that took place a couple of weeks ago. Were you given any reasons in advance of your going to the border, to the bridge, that you might be banned, and the basis of any ban?
No, actually, I traveled on May the last time, and I tried again on 15th of October. So usually I'm traveling, and I never know before that I'm banned from traveling. I just, they just informed me, the police, while I'm traveling on that day. And I asked about any document or any reason, so they didn't clarify to me anything. They say that there is intelligence, Israeli intelligence ban, and information that you should not travel. And they didn't, as I said, give me any justification, any reason, or any document. And before traveling, no, I never know that I'm banned from traveling.
So you were permitted to travel in May, and 5 months later you were banned. Did anything happen that you know of relating to yourself or the union between May and October that would bring about a change of attitude to your travel?
No, no, nothing. It's what happens with our organization, like the rest organizations, they read it on the 18th of August. This is the thing that's new. No, we don't, there is nothing or any other developments during the period.
Last, could I just ask a couple of questions about the raid on your organisation that took place in August? Again, was any notification given to you about the production of any information or any documents or laptops prior to that raid? Were you warned of it or demanded any information?
No. We just read in the news or hear in the news that they raided the office with the other 6 civil society organization in Ramallah. After that, we went to the office. We found that they took everything from the office. They left a very big table. They couldn't confiscate, but also they damaged before. We didn't. They took all the files approximately from our office, the files of our beneficiaries, our projects, our also financial documents, but no one come back to us that there is some information or etc. This is what we heard and we discovered after going to the office.
And 3 months have passed since that raid. In those 3 months, has anyone from your organisation been charged with any offence arising from the information obtained in the raid? Or has any further action been taken against your information as a result of taking the documents and laptops?
Yes. Actually, not only after 18th of August, but after October, after the designation of the organization.
This is October 2021.
Yes. The Israeli 1 year, the Israeli occupation intelligence called around 15 of our volunteers and employees, asking them for interrogation in the closed detention centers to their areas. And each one spent around 1 hour and 15 minutes maybe on the interrogation. Through it, they put a lot of psychological pressure on them, trying to threaten them in order to leave working or volunteering in the Union of Palestinian Women Committees. Some of them was before the 18th of August and the rest after. Also, the travel ban, it was for me and for another volunteers in the union, but actually all of us discovered that through the traveling, no one informed us before that we are having a travel ban or etc.
And apart from the travel ban, has anyone been charged with any offence?
No.
And has anyone else been subjected to administrative detention?
No.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ms. Jaber. I have a couple of questions. Just to continue on the travel ban and on the destruction of all of your property and information from your office, how has that impacted on your work, on your personal work, but also on the work of the union?
Yes. Thank you. Actually, the consequences of the raiding of our office have impact on 3 levels. The first one on the individual level, on the employees and volunteers in the union. The second one on the organizational level, and the third level is on the Palestinian women in general. Actually, on the individual level, we are facing threats, as I said, that imposed on our personal lives. Directly after the designation, the Israeli intelligence start to call our volunteers and employees, as I said, for interrogation. And usually, as I said, all of us also are women. And through the interrogation, they tried and to mention our kids in direct or sometimes indirect way that we will, and sometimes they said to some of us that we will destroy your personal life. So this is also put us, our lives as a Palestinian woman in a risk. And put us in a fear, not only us, we and our families, family members, especially our children. And nowadays also we are worried as workers of our income source, because we have, all of us has financial responsibilities. All of us working in the union since many years. And in this situation where is the unemployment, high unemployment rate in Palestine, we are worried about our jobs, about our works. On the organizational level, yes, it makes our work very hard. And instead of thinking of how to develop our work and how to implement our strategies and to develop the way we are serving women, we are working to solve problems. We are working under pressure. We are nowadays working without office, sometimes from homes, from different places. So this is make a little bit mess in our work. On the Palestinian women level, we also worried about our beneficiaries. UPWC providing services for around 20,000 women, and there is 1,000 child graduated from our kindergartens every year. So we are worried if, for example, we face a financial problem or any obstacles to continue our work in the union, who will take care of those beneficiaries of the union?
On that question of the, your work is with the most marginalized, as you explained. Do you see, has the impact on the most marginalized increased over time? Is there a pattern of the repression? And you mentioned, the increase in the violence and activities of the settlers, but are there other reasons of the repression that have impacted on the most marginalized and perhaps more than the general population?
Yes, sure. There is a deterioration in the women's situation in Palestine due to three main reasons. The most important is the Israeli occupation. Secondly, we are living in a conservative and patriarchal community. And thirdly, there is the high rates of poverty among Palestinian families, especially women. The Israeli occupation arrests since the beginning of this year 141 women. 30 of them are still in prison now. We face a risk of our lives through crossing the checkpoints. That there is around 500 checkpoint in the West Bank. The closure imposed on the women in Gaza Strip for more than 15 years. It's a very hard to the women because they face an inhuman situation there. The women in East Jerusalem faced the discrimination policies. The women in Al-Sheikh Jarrah faced the risk of the transfer from their houses. Regarding the patriarchal community, unfortunately in Palestine, the legal system is not providing any protection for women. A very old laws applied on us, especially the personal law and the criminal law. So we demand in the Palestinian feminist movement to make amendments on those laws to protect the women's lives. The poverty in Palestine also, which linked to the Israeli restrictions on our borders, our our natural resources, the movement restriction for the Palestinian people. So the unemployment rate among women in Palestine more than 85%.
And faced with all these obstacles, how are the most marginalized Palestinian women and girls, how are they coping? What is your experience of that?
The Palestinian women face a lot of challenges. It's not easy to face the occupation policies. It's not easy to face the very old traditions and problems on the social level in Palestine. But the Palestinian women, they are well educated. A lot of, a big percentage of Palestinian women are going to universities. The Palestinian women movement in general put a lot of efforts to defend the rights of Palestinian women, which is we as the Union of Palestinian Women Committees part of it. Also, the Palestinian women movement works against the Israeli occupation policies in enhancing the steadfastness of Palestinian women in their lives, in providing empowerment for them on different level, on economical level, and social and psychological level. But there is a lot of challenges. The work with women requires a lot of years to reach the goal of equality and to achieve what we desire as Palestinian women movement and women in general, the dignity and living in independent state like the other women in the world.
Yeah, Jaber, I wanted to ask you more on the impact of the settlers' activity on the women. You spoke about that, but over the past few years, have you seen an increase or a decrease in the impacts from the settlers? You had mentioned, the impact during the harvest of the olives and so on, and the raids on the houses, the impact on the children. How do you see the pattern of that work? Thank you.
It's increased in a very noticeable way. The settlements itself become bigger and bigger. And the violence of the settlers themselves also is raised against Palestinians. As I said, they are not civilian. All of them have, they are armed. Unfortunately, you see a guy walking in the street with a gun. And they practice a lot of violations against people with the protection of the Israeli IDF or the Israeli soldiers. I'm from Hebron, in which the settlers are living in the old city of Hebron. Houses are very close to the Palestinian houses. They practice daily violations against them. They throw stones. They attack the children while they are playing in the streets. Last month, they attacked one of our volunteers in Hebron city. She is volunteering in one of the kindergarten. And they stop her and investigate her bag and her clothes. As she told me that they put the gun on her head because going to this kindergarten, she must go through a checkpoint. As I said in my introduction, that a lot of young women, unfortunately, in the school age, they didn't go to school because their parents fear of them because they have to reach their schools, they have to go to through many checkpoints, sometimes 2 or 3 checkpoints in the old city in Hebron. No one can we still remember at the Wabshi family crime that when the settlers burned them while they were sleeping, the mother and the father and the brother died, and one child keep alive with after burning his face. This violations of settlers is increasing in a very hard way against the people, and the mothers in Palestine that we hear many times, for example, in Al Jalazon refugees camps, the settlement is very close to the school. In our meeting with one of the women, she said that I'm afraid from 7 o'clock until 2 o'clock while my son in the school, because I feel every day that the settlers will attack the school. Because when we talked in detail with her, she said, no, it's not a feeling. It's something that happened with many of the children, when the settlers attacked the school, some of them injured, and after that there is some dangerous cases. Some of the kids use wheelchair. Some of the kids decided not to go back to school because they're afraid of the violence of the settlers.
Yeah, Jaber, I had one more question. You had mentioned the failure of the international community. If you could speak a little bit more about that, and what is it that, what are the different steps that you would like the international community to take to assist you in the adverse situation you are in?
Yes. In our case of the designation of those six organizations, we heard the international community shows a very good solidarity with us. They issued a lot of statements that against the designation, and that's something we appreciate a lot. But unfortunately, the Israeli occupation continued in its steps against the organizations and against the Palestinian community at all. What we are expecting is more practical steps against the designation and against all crimes of the Israeli occupation against us. Actually, we feel that there is a double standard in dealing with our case, for example, and the Ukrainian case in general. We are not with the war anymore against anybody. But when we make a comparison between our case that we are under occupation for more than 70 years and the Ukraine-Russian war, we feel that the world have practical steps. They are providing a lot to the other, but in our case, they neglect the crimes against us. And as I mentioned, the Shireen Abu Akleh case is one example that she shooted in front of the cameras. But there is a lot of cases like Shireen Abu Akleh, men and women, not only women, that have been shooted without doing any crime or without any violation action. So the violation actions is not a justification for killing the people, as Israel always used them. So we expect the international community to make Israel accountable for its crimes against our people, against our women and our children.
Do you have any?
Could I just come back for a few minutes, please? Just to ask you to speak a bit more about your comments on the patriarchal nature of Palestinian society. You mentioned that a few times. You also said that Palestinian law does not provide protection for women. Does Palestinian law actually impose any restrictions on women limits to their movement or their activity or their status?
Yes, the Palestinian legal system is very old. Still on the West Bank, there is the Jordanian law since 1960s. And in Gaza, there is also another old law that it's applicable. It's the Egyptian one, and also it's more than 50 years ago. Those laws are still there is discrimination in it, discriminated against women. There is, yes, a lot of restriction on those laws. For example, I don't know in English, but it's like the woman, for example, couldn't marry herself. There must be a man from the family, like the father or the uncle or the brother, who, for example, should agree on marrying her, and etc. We demand in the Palestinian movement to update those laws to be more modern, to respect the woman as individual with no discrimination, and give the woman the full right. Also, it's not only the laws. We are facing some discrimination, or a lot of discrimination, let's say, in some conservative communities, that still the women suffering because of the traditions and sometimes, the old habits of the Palestinian community. For example, despite the high percentage of women, for example, who are educated, but there is a lot of discrimination against them.
What impact does the Israeli occupation have on the status of women and the patriarchal nature of Palestinian society?
I think the Israeli occupation is a route for a lot of patriarchal reactions against women. For example, when we said there is a very high percentage of early marriages in some areas in Palestine, if you study or analyze well the reasons for this high percentage of early marriage, we find it's the occupation. The spread, for example, of many checkpoints prevent the families from sending their daughters to schools. So she don't have any option to do even the early marriage. The high rate of poverty, the restriction of movement given to men, the lack of work opportunities due to the occupation closure, for example, in Gaza, and not only in Gaza, in the West Bank, the control of the natural resources of the Israeli occupation, all of those problems, for example, are the reasons for the poverty. When we talk about high level of poverty, always, according to Palestinian studies, there is a high level also of gender-based violence. So I think the Israeli occupation policies is a root or main root of the gender-based violence against women.
Does your organisation work in Gaza as well as the West Bank?
Yes, we have 5 branches in Gaza.
Do you see any difference in the status of women between those in the West Bank and those in Gaza?
In the roots, no. But there is some different. Gaza situation is very hard because of there is they faced 4 wars in a few period of time, and everyone knows what is the war means. Also, there is high rate of poverty. Nowadays, there is a lot of guys who try to immigrate through the sea, and unfortunately, they die through this trip. So yes, there is some differences, but as I said, in the root, all the Palestinians have a big suffering.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jaber. We really appreciate your taking the time and answering so many questions and for your testimony. So we will close this session now. We will take a 15-minute break and return here at 3:15 to hear the testimony from the representatives of the Bizan Center for Research and Development. Thanks very much again, Ms. Jaber, for your presentation. Thank you. Goodbye.